Hello everyone and welcome to Pablo Escobar's Vids. This is going to be my vlog entry number 6 as I chronicle my progress through Aurodium Tier 2 in Season 25, Week 2 of Grand Arena. So starting with my Grand Arena update first. The first matchup is against a player named Engel in round 1, and this is quite a difficult lineup because the player that I'm against had a significantly higher GP than myself and 2 Galactic Legends which he decided to put on defense. That was Supreme Leader Kylo Ren and Jedi Master Kenobi. So before we jumped into that, I thought let's just try a straightforward warm-up with a Sith trio against the Geonosians. Fortunately, Sion was able to take the initial hits, keeping the heat off of Treo, and I was able to then hop around and clear up the Geos from there. And then decided let's just rip off the band-aid and hop straight into that Jedi Master Kenobi lineup. So I decided to use my General Anakin Skywalker and the 501st team. This is a counter that I've been using quite a bit in Squad Arena whenever I've seen a Jedi Master Kenobi, but it only works if there is no Commander Ahsoka Tano on the Kenobi's team, as she would one-shot KO my gas and leave the 501st open to be decimated. So the whole idea works that Jedi Master Kenobi will with his ultimate will allow bypassing of taunts, and Jedi Knight Driven does the same by marking down any random hero like the ARC Trooper in that example. But with gas still standing, it's impossible to take them out, and as this team gains buffs and spreads them around with Yoda and even JMK, they boost the offense of the 501st team under General Anakin Skywalker's General of the 501st ability by 2% as a stacking bonus each time a buff is gained by the enemy team. And this was fortunately able to be achieved without losing anyone. Echo looked very close to biting the dust there, but fortunately we were able to clear up with 5 men still remaining. Then, with that huge win under the belt, decided to cool off a bit to get a straightforward Ewok counter with my nest, who unfortunately managed to get dazed. Maybe an extra bit of tenacity trying to go from the 160 to 165 range that I'm in at the moment, and trying to get closer to the 170% should help to ameliorate that type of event happening in the future. But I'll have to look at that at some point. She's really not a super priority right now, and for most intents and purposes, even with the picking up on odd days here or there, she does manage to clear out most Ewok teams quite efficiently. So that win under the belt, we then decided let's try this Faithful Empire team. So this is my second tier team in my Sith Eternal Emperor farming pathway, and at some point I think they're going to be a lot more useful than they currently are. I mean, they do quite a lot of work already, and Vader is quite a good example of that. With boosting his relic levels up for the Sith Eternal Emperor farm, I've noticed that his damage output has exponentially increased. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of this team does as they start gearing up in this pathway, especially Thrawn, whose utility is incredible, but he's always a little bit squishy. At the moment his main function is fracture someone and help with protection recovery, but there's always this possibility that he'll just be obliterated by one big AoE. So I think as time goes on with the relic advancements for Sith Eternal Emperor, he might become a little bit more durable, and that'll be less of a worry. But for now, this team has some tremendous utility and I'm really enjoying using them. So we then cleared out the front wall, decided let's look into the back wall, and went up against this Old Republic with a pretty standard Kylo Ren counter. The only concern on this type of composition team is that T3M5 and the ability block that he sometimes throws out there. Missions Blind is a bit annoying, but it doesn't really throw you off so much, but the ability block can be quite disruptive. Unfortunately, we were able to clear that team with max banners. Then decided to go and use the bounty hunters, sorry, not the bounty hunters, well, I was considering whether to use them against the Night Sisters, but their track record is not super great, so I decided to take them instead against this odd mishmash rebel team and see how well they were able to perform here. And they were actually able to do a pretty decent job, pull off a neat 65 banner win, and we then went on to the Night Sisters with the Imperial Troopers for a pretty standard 65 banner win pickup. And this team is slowly growing in strength, and I've actually really enjoyed using them. Although that being said, with the raids I've noticed that Moff Gideon doesn't really add much to the team, but that's a thing we'll talk about maybe in a future video at some point. Then decided to take the remaining Padme and Cat team out against this Qui-Gon Jinn-led team. Fortunately, no Anakin on the opposing team, so pretty straightforward team to clear out. First, take out Qui-Gon Jinn so you can actually get down the other people, And then that was a pretty straightforward cleanup from there from 865 banner win. Then I think probably floating on some adrenaline or still on a bit of a high, decided let's see if we can pick up 1 or 2 odd banners by taking out someone in this SLKR lineup. But Supreme Leader Kylo Ren's leadership with boosting the mastery of the team that is supporting him makes that a little bit more difficult to do. So anyway, we called our losses there and decided to move on. Fortunately, in that first round, Iron Versa was also able to pick up 1 defensive hold, and it was quite impressive because that relatively low-geared team, as we'll see at the end of the video, was able to hold off a 3-man relic team of CLS, Han, and Chewie. So quite impressive to see for now. In round 2, then we came up against J-Reg and started off here with a Jedi Knight Revan team lineup against the General Grievous team, and this was very hot in my hand kind of moments, especially because they were able to blitz out some of my heroes quite early on here, like you can see. So with Yoda and JKR gone, I was quite worried, but then Jolie got a turn in, managed to revive everyone, and we were back on track again. But the problem is that if Jolie gets taken out, then this whole team will probably fall apart. But yeah, Yoda hit the dust again there. We were able to come around and eventually revive him. But until then, we just focused on trying to get the droideka out, then the Magna Guard, and then focused in finally on the B1 battle droid. So overall, this is proving to be quite a consistent counter against this Jedi Knight-driven teams, but there is a little bit of a margin of error that sometimes I seem to incur every now and then. So then we saw this team with Director Krennic, the Death Trooper, Shore Trooper, and Stormtrooper, as well as a TIE Pilot. I thought this should be pretty straightforward. Let's just try and just use our mismatched people in here. This was a little bit perilous, and I might have underestimated this team quite a bit. But we decided let's just see how this goes in. I don't know, I feel if Darth Sidious had a separatist tag, it might have helped a bit. Anyway, that's just wishful thinking. But we were able to pick out about the victory, but it didn't come very nicely. This Stormtrooper is actually surprisingly tanky, and maybe a decent point to be aware of with the Iden Verso team that I'm building up. So I lost a few banners there, but we were able to save a good team and take out this placeholder team that we were up against. Our next team we decided to go up against then was a little bit of a dubious choice, so kind of flip-flopped about trying to decide which would be the better team to try and take out, and then ultimately decided on this Rolo team. So brought my Faithful Empire team in, expecting a 65 banner win, and hopped around with Darth Vader quite a bit, managed to take out some, and then Rolo dropped a huge AoE and just obliterated Shore Trooper and Mara Jade. Probably a motivation for gearing them up further so they're not so flimsy. But anyway, so that down out of the way, we decided to look into the back wall and saw a Geonosian team which made a straightforward Sith trio counter. Unfortunately, they got their hands onto Treyarch quite early on. We were able to get them to refocus onto Scion, and thankfully Treyarch was able to survive. But whenever this happens, I always feel a little bit uneasy that Treyarch could just get blitzed out at any point in time. But anyway, we managed to pick up a clear win here, 64 banners, and then moved on to the next team. So I thought, you know what, Phoenix looks pretty straightforward. Let's try a Enfys Nest against this Phoenix, and probably not the best idea. I don't know if it's the Sabine Wren armor shred that kind of foiled the plans a bit, or if it was just an undergeared Enfys Nest. Maybe with a relic level or so, she might be a little bit tough and able to withstand a few more hits. But this match didn't go exactly as I planned, and I think as soon as her bonus protection dropped, she was open for a huge hit. And I think it was 2 or 3 armor shreds at that point, she just got absolutely demolished. That was a little bit embarrassing, and I probably could have saved a better team to use somewhere else. Unfortunately, that ended up costing me an extra team, but in the grand scheme of the round, it didn't seem to make too much of a difference. Next up, I decided to try my Kylo Ren as a solo against this low-geared Rogue One team, and at times this actually came very close to being very dicey, especially because of Cassian with the healing immunity, the ability blocks that made it difficult to actually land my special to help with protection and recovery. But in the end, once Cassian was dropped, I was able to go on to a full banner 69 win with a solo. We then went up to the top lane to the top zone and decided to try out whether we should come back to Phoenix or we should try and make some moves on the top zone. I think my thinking though was that the bottom zone has more banners and would help to secure a win more readily, but I wasn't too sure who I wanted to use against that Phoenix team as yet, so I thought, you know what, let's just use Gas against the leftover first order team that was placed at the top here, just to take them out comfortably, and then at least we know that this is one headache team out of the way. So again, Gas able to nicely secure a win, and not a great banner win because of the fact that they have very little recovery options, again justifying putting them onto defense. Then decided to use the Padme team up against this Phasma team, and this is pretty easy, pretty comfortable win. This Phasma-led team doesn't seem to help too much, although they have been a little bit helpful now and then in territory wars, especially with the Omicron ability, but in Grand Arena they're pretty much cannon fodder. At the same time though, I don't really find them very useful in offense, so I kind of just put them as a paper wall defense of where SLKR is, and usually SLKR is the one that does the heavy lifting. They're just there to occupy a spot, I guess, and maybe snipe a few members. We then decided to use this Bounty Hunters up against Qui-Gon Jinn, but as soon as Qui-Gon Jinn bit the dust, it was one huge AoE and I lost a few people unfortunately. But anyway, then we had a clear view of the ship fleets that we had to take out. So 7-star Finalizer and 7-star Rebel fleet seemed to be a little bit dicey, so as I said, let's just go back, clear up this Phoenix squad, and unfortunately had to use the Imperial Troopers. Maybe I should have just used them at the beginning and just gotten this over and done with. But I guess you live and learn. So my nest is probably not that suited at the moment to go up a solo against a Phoenix team with a Sabine on it. But anyway, we will clean out that team with full health and full protection. So, pausing for some reflection on this, we then decided, let's head across to the fleets and see what we can do here. So I was a bit reluctant to tackle this Finalizer with the Negotiator, because I have seen some clips on YouTube, etc., of Finalizers being used to counter the Negotiator. But I think it also shows that Finalizer's AI use is not as great as when a player uses it and can actually be a bit more clever about who to mark down. So we were able to get some luck here. We managed to take out the TIE Silencer first, and that took out a bulk of their damage dealing. We were then able to bring in our second tank with the Y-Wing and carve a path to victory slowly through this team. And this Finalizer has always been quite an old faithful. It's reliable in most circumstances and usually helps with securing pretty decent wins. So we tried some banner recovery, but at the end of the day it was just, let's just punch through this fleet and get on to the next one. Then with the Rebel fleet I decided, let me try my Finalizer. This is the first time I've actually used this Finalizer with the new TIE Echelon that I've got available. So I thought, not too sure where is the optimal place to place it, but I decided let's try putting it as a starting, since under the Finalizer lead the reinforcement ability will be activated anyway. So he forced a taunt quite early on. The kit takes a little bit of reading to get used to, but this ship is, oh my word, ridiculously durable. It took quite a beating early on, but his protection and health recovery is phenomenal. This really is a tank that holds up quite well with this team, and it really turns this into quite an interesting offensive team. Actually quite like using this Finalizer on offense, to be honest. I'm hoping to see more use from it in the future, and at the moment I'm still busy buying out the Special Forces TIE Fighter. So we'll see how this fleet starts shaping up in the future Grand Arenas and as the Finalizer closes in on the 7-star unlock. So all in all, a pretty comfortable win with a full clear despite the Phoenix mess up earlier on. The third round then we came up against DT, and this was also quite a difficult matchup. This guy had quite a significantly higher GP than myself with two Galactic Legends, SLKR and Jedi Master Loop, and the path to Jedi Master Loop requires quite a significant investment in a lot of characters. So this guy had quite a lot of teams available to go up against me, and ultimately I ran out of firepower at some point. So started with my Sith trio against the Geos, and unfortunately Treya got picked up quite early on, which definitely did not go according to plan. Then decided to use the Imperial Troopers against the Night Sisters, which has proven to be quite a consistent counter in the past. We were able to break our way through this, but with some inconvenience, I suppose. Still a full gun win, but would have liked to have steamrolled them a little bit more easily. Then took the Bounty Hunters up against this Qui-Gon Jinn-led team, and yeah, I mean, this was an okay win, I guess. Boss really needs a few relic levels, and that helped the Hounds tip as well. And I'll get around to doing that when I start farming with the Executor. But for now, the main thing is that they were able to at least pull off a comfortable win and save me a team through that Qui-Gon Jinn team. Then looked into the back wall and decided to take Jedi Knight Revan up against this General Grievous team. So like I mentioned before, if Jolee has to be taken out, then this team kind of falls apart, so it becomes very close to happening quite more often than I would like, and it makes this team a little bit sketchy at the moment. But I think eventually I'm going to have to invest some relic levels in Jolee, maybe getting up to relic or gear 13, maybe relic 3, later on relic 5. It's just at the moment it's not quite a top priority. Maybe when I start looking at the Malak farm, then I'll circle back around and work on a Darth Revan and a Jedi Knight Revan team and boost some of their supporting characters along that journey. But for now, I think I'm more focused on trying to get the Sith Eternal Emperor and the Executor, and after that then I can look at investing into Darth Revan Malak on the way towards working to Jedi Master Luke. So unfortunately, Jolee hit the dust there, but luckily we were able to win without losing anyone else, or that would have been abysmal. And then looked at the other teams that we had to go up against and decided let's just try and take out the Old Republic team using Kylo Ren. So again, this is the variant with the droid that is irritating because of the ability block, as you can see here. So ability block plus the blind, definitely not the nicest combination to start with, or to having any Grand Arena, I guess. But anyway, a pretty easy counter as long as you keep it cool and time out the skills quite carefully. So then looked around again, decided let's try the Empire team up against the small Mothma team, and let's see how that goes. And like I said, Vader's offense is absolutely amazing and really enjoyable, but as you saw, the Short Trooper for a tank is a little bit flimsy for now. He's got a full set of 6 defense molds, so should be able to resist the damage. It's just the gear level that means that he doesn't have a large HP pool at the moment. So that'll start coming around, and I think once the Trooper team is finished, I'll work on that Empire team a little bit more and start strengthening them up a little bit further. We then decided to take the Padme Cat team out against this Jedi Knight, Jedi Training Raid team. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy win, I think, as well. And then circled around to bottom and decided to use gas against this Darth Revan team. This is pretty straightforward, I think, as long as you don't trigger Malak too much, but unfortunately that happened, but we were still able to come away with a decent win. It's ironic though that the hero with no fear is susceptible to fear, but anyway, I digress. So this team here, in retrospect and just watching this video now, I think maybe it might have been a better idea to keep the troopers for this team and have used this mismatch team with Dooku, etc. against the Night Sister team that I came up with against on the bottom. But yeah, I guess that's the benefit of 2020 hindsight. The troopers, I think, would have made short work of this Phasma team and allowed me to get onto the fleet battle. Unfortunately, the other teams that I have just don't hold up as well. So yeah, maybe someone against the Night Sisters might have worked better, but I mean, it's always easier to make that decision in hindsight, I guess. But anyway, that brings to a conclusion the Grand Arena round, and we were successful and eventually promoted through to Aurodium 1 at the end of this week. So I have more updates on that in the future video, looking at week 3. So looking at the account update and starting off with the Sith Eternal Emperor farm so far. So we've made some progress, small steps towards the teams that we're working on. With the Empire team, I was able to get Vader up to Relic 6. Finally, Dark Trooper with the Galactic Chase that happened recently, as well as the login entry is up to 7 stars and is now at gear 11 and 4 pieces. Chirotex, a bit of a bottleneck and holding me up quite a bit, but we'll eventually get around to getting Dark Trooper up to gear 13. look at the second set of teams that I have planned out. So I was able to get Savage up to Gear 7 and Maul is still sitting at Gear 5. I'm not really in a super rush to relic this team, and I've used up quite a lot of resources with getting Vader to relic 6 and ultimately relic 7 after this week of Grand Arena. So I think I might need a bit of time to recover some gear before I start investing into the last 2 relic 7s for the Sith Eternal Emperor upgrades, which would be Sidious and the Sith Marauder. But so far, some decent progress. So then looking at the account updates for an overview, grants view of things. So the galactic power increase from 3.84 to 3.85 million this past week, going up by about 10k. It's a bit of a shorter week than previously, than the previous video I think as well. Relic forms, I was able to get Darth Vader from Relic 5 to Relic 6, Piet is still hovering at Relic 2. Our Gear 13, we've made some progress on Mark Gideon, who's now at Gear 12 with 4 pieces attached. And our Gear 12 form is Dark Trooper, who's at Gear 11 with 4 pieces, held up a bit by the Paratex, but on the bright side is now at 7 stars. So Dark Trooper moving out of the energy farm, I've promoted Scavenger Ray in preparation for getting Jedi Training Ray for Jedi Master Luke next year. Aurodium to try and work towards getting Gando for the Razor Crest, IG-11, the IG-2000 and the Vulture Droid are still on farm. Luckily though, the Vulture Droid is now accessible with Item Verso, so that'll help me pick up a few random shards of her along the way, and sort of pays off a bit of the fact that this Vulture Droid farm is so long and tedious. So the Zazer for this week went to Grand Admiral Thrawn's Ebb and Flow, and we'll see how that works out with the upcoming Empire team. As I mentioned, he is my next gearing target since Dark Trooper is going to be on a little bit of a hold for the moment. Omicrons, I'm currently on 7 out of 20. Still undecided as to who I would like to give the Omicron to. I'm going to toss up between whether to give it to Sidious, who will use it mainly Territory Wars, but I don't know, Grand Arena seems like a better investment, so it might go to Sam Wessel eventually. But I'll decide a little bit closer to the time. Sam actually seems like not a bad option if I'm going to be gearing up bounty hunters in the future for the executive fleet. So far with the account, that's some decent progress, and the Imperial Troopers are shaping up quite nicely. I think overall I'm going to try and get Moff Gideon to Gear 13, leave him there, then work on the Range Trooper, get him to Gear 13 as well, and then Dark Trooper to Gear 13. I wouldn't want to waste too much relics on them, because I do need to save the relics for the Sith Eternal Emperor forms themselves, but at least to round out an Imperial Trooper team. With regards to the shopping planning so far, so the build still currency, still buying the First Order SF TIE Fighter, who is now at 5 stars, and then Negotiator is at 7 stars, with 95, it's almost at 7 stars, with 95 out of 100 shards. So that's it for this update. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave any comments or feedback that you guys would be interested in. So thanks so much, and see you in the next video. Take care everyone. Cheers.